I was a US Navy SEAL. I was trained for any combat situation on Earth. But what we found under the ice in Antarctica, it wasn't from Earth. It's a shocking claim. A story of elite soldiers, a hidden enemy, and a massive cover-up at the very bottom of the world. For years, whispers of a secret war in Antarctica have echoed through the darker corners of the internet, passed along with anonymous testimonies and grainy photos. These stories tell of classified missions, terrifying run-ins with unidentified submerged objects, and a truth so big it had to be buried under 2 miles of ice. But is any of it true? Today, we're dragging this story out of the cold and into the light. We'll piece together the whistleblower's testimony, look at the historical events used to prop these claims up, and measure it all against the facts. So, what's really going on in the frozen depths of Antarctica? The story, as it's told, kicks off with a mission so secret, it was never officially logged. The man claiming to be a Tier 1 operator from the elite Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU, says his team was briefed for an operation that was completely off the books. He calls it Operation Deep Scan. Let's hear his account. We were flown in under total radio silence. No official flight plans. We landed on a black, silent, tracked vehicle that took us hours into the interior. The official story was that we were providing security and assistance for a National Science Foundation project. A team of geologists had supposedly found a magnetic anomaly and were deploying an experimental deep ice sonar array to study it. That was the cover. But our gear told a different story. We had weaponry that was still in the experimental phase, and we were each issued a personal EMP shield, something I'd only ever seen in a lab. You don't bring that kind of hardware to help a bunch of geologists look at rocks. We knew this was something else. Our real objective, we were told, was to investigate, and if necessary, secure a unique geological formation detected beneath the ice shelf, near a place they called Geological Survey Outpost Echo. The outpost was just a series of temporary structures, but the heart of it was the sonar array. The scientists were tense. They'd been tracking something for days. Not a submarine, not a geological shift. It was a sonar contact that was moving at speeds and executing maneuvers that were simply impossible. It would dive thousands of feet in seconds, hover, and then accelerate to hundreds of knots, all in complete silence. They showed us the data. It defied physics. This is the perfect setup for a military conspiracy, isn't it? An elite, deniable team, a cover story involving civilian scientists, and an objective that's intentionally vague and deeply classified. The whistleblower builds his credibility by using specific, authentic-sounding military jargon, Tier 1, DEVGRU, EMP shields. He sets the scene in a remote, hostile environment, far from any prying eyes. It's a place where anything could happen, and no one would ever know. The stage is set for a confrontation. According to the testimony, the SEAL team set up a perimeter around the ice boreholes where the sonar gear was deployed. For 2 days, there was nothing but wind and ice, and the sonar screens were just a mess of confusing signals. Then, on the 3rd night, everything changed. It started with a low hum, a vibration we could feel through the soles of our boots. The sonar operator started yelling. The contact was ascending, fast. It was coming right up one of an ice-covered channel that led to the open sea a few miles from our position. But then it stopped, directly beneath us. The ice began to crack. A pale blue light pulsed up from below, turning the entire snowfield into a glowing landscape. We were trained to be unflappable, but every man on that ice was frozen in place. Then, the surface erupted. A craft, a massive object of some kind, broke through the ice, sending huge plates of it flying into the air. It wasn't a submarine. It was perfectly black, geometric, and made no sound at all. It just hung there, about 200 feet above the fractured ice, blocking out the stars. It was a moment of pure, terrifying awe. Then the attack began. It wasn't with missiles or guns. Small silver drones like metallic insects swarmed out from hatches on the main craft. They moved with an intelligence, a coordinated purpose that was horrifying. We opened fire. Our weapons, some of the most advanced on the planet, were useless. The bullets either ricocheted off with bright flashes or just seemed to be absorbed. The drones fired back with directed energy beams. Men were hit. There was no explosion, just a silent, white flash, and they were gone. Our EMP shields flared and died within seconds. It was a slaughter. It's a terrifying account. The impossible craft, the silent attack, the uselessness of our best technology against something completely unknown. This part of the story is the climax, designed to be visceral and shocking, describing a one-sided battle where elite soldiers are totally helpless. The details about the drones and energy weapons add a layer of sci-fi horror that makes the story impossible to ignore. The testimony claims a secret battle was fought and lost in the Antarctic night. But now it's time to pull back from the story and look at the real world. Could an event like this, and a cover-up this massive, even be possible? The first and biggest roadblock for this story is a document signed back in 1959, the Antarctic Treaty. Born out of scientific cooperation, the treaty sets aside the entire continent as a zone for peace and science. Article 1 is crystal clear. Antarctica shall be used for peaceful purposes only. It prohibits any measures of a military nature, like building bases, running military maneuvers, or testing any type of weapon. Now, the story of Operation Deep Scan, as a combat mission, directly violates this foundational treaty, which is followed by dozens of the world's most powerful nations. Of course, conspiracy proponents are quick to point out a key clause. The treaty does allow for military personnel or equipment for scientific research or for any other peaceful purpose. And that's true. It's how the US Navy and Air Force provide the massive logistical support needed to run places like McMurdo Station. But there's a world of difference between flying supply planes and getting into a firefight with a UFO. The treaty also has a powerful enforcement tool. Any signatory nation has the right to conduct on-site inspections of any station or equipment in Antarctica at any time. Hiding a battle, concealing wreckage, and covering up the deaths of multiple US Navy SEALs under that level of potential international scrutiny would be a logistical nightmare. The men in black would have to erase every trace before, say, a Russian or Chinese inspection team decided to drop by for a surprise visit. The story tries to patch this hole by describing an immediate and flawless cover-up. It was over in minutes. What was left of my team was in full retreat. We were picked up by the black tracked vehicles. We weren't taken back to a US base. We were taken to a black site, a facility that doesn't officially exist. We were debriefed, or rather, interrogated, by men who weren't military. They were agency men. We were forced to sign lifetime non-disclosure agreements, bound by something they called National Security Oath, Section 34B. They told us the men who died were officially listed as casualties in a parachute training accident in Alaska. Our mission never happened. We were never there. This is a very convenient explanation, isn't it? It explains why there are no public records, no grieving families demanding answers, and why the supposed survivors are silent. It creates a closed loop. The reason there's no evidence is because the cover-up was perfect. Using official-sounding but non-existent things like National Security Oath, Section 34B, adds a layer of fake authenticity. But for this to be true, you have to believe in a shadow government that's flawlessly efficient and all-powerful, a common idea in conspiracy law, but one that's never been proven to exist. So if the story of a modern SEAL team firefight doesn't hold up, where did the idea even come from? To understand that, we need to go back more than 70 years, to the end of World War II and a very real, very large military operation. Almost every story about a secret war in Antarctica is tied to one key event: Operation Highjump. Launched in 1946, it was, and still is, the largest military expedition to Antarctica in history. The scale was just enormous. A task force of over a dozen ships, including an aircraft carrier and a submarine, with nearly 5,000 men. The official goals were clear: train personnel and test equipment in the cold, solidify U.S. sovereignty claims, and conduct scientific research and aerial mapping. But conspiracy theories throw those goals out the window. They point to the mission's famous leader, Admiral Richard E. Byrd, and claim the real purpose was to hunt down a secret Nazi base that had survived the war, a base that had supposedly found alien technology. This belief comes from two shaky claims. First, that the expedition, which was planned for 6 to 8 months, fled the continent in just 8 weeks. And second, a single explosive interview Admiral Byrd supposedly gave to a Chilean newspaper, El Mercurio, on his way home. In that alleged interview, Byrd is quoted warning of a new enemy that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. This is the foundational myth. An American task force getting defeated by superior flying technology, and a stoic admiral breaking his silence to warn the world. What we fought? They've been down there for a long time. Highjump wasn't an exploration mission, it was an invasion force, and they were repelled. Byrd tried to warn us, but they silenced him. The Antarctic Treaty wasn't created to foster scientific cooperation. It was created to establish a quarantine. To keep people out, so that whatever is under the ice stays under the ice. This reframing of history is incredibly powerful. It turns a treaty of peace into a quarantine wall and a naval operation into a secret war. But how does it hold up to scrutiny? Let's break down the myth of Operation Highjump. First, the idea that the task force fled is a huge stretch. While the mission did end earlier than some initial plans suggested, Navy reports from the time explain that the expedition hit all its main goals during the short Antarctic summer. They built the Little America 4 base, tested gear, and snapped over 70,000 aerial mapping photos, a huge accomplishment at the time. They did face brutal weather and tragic accidents, but there's no credible record of them being chased out by a hostile force. Second, and most importantly, is that pole-to-pole interview. This quote is the cornerstone of the whole theory, repeated endlessly online. But when historians and researchers tried to find the original article in El Mercurio, they came up empty. No verifiable primary source has ever been found. What we do find are Byrd's public statements talking about the strategic importance of the polar regions in an age of long-range bombers, a completely logical Cold War concern. He was warning that an attack could come over the poles, not that one did come from super-fast alien ships. The narrative of a secret Nazi UFO war is built on a misreading of the expedition's timeline and an unverified and likely made-up newspaper quote. So if there's no evidence of a secret war, why does the Antarctic mystery refuse to die? The answer is probably the continent itself. It's the most remote, hostile, and unknown place on Earth. A land of extremes where reality can be stranger than any fiction. And in recent years, science has given us glimpses of what's really under the ice. And it's arguably more fascinating than any UFO story. Scientists have found huge subglacial lakes, like Lake Vostok, that have been cut off from the world for millions of years and could be hiding unique forms of life. They've drilled miles down and found pollen and ancient soil, proving that 34 million years ago, Antarctica was a lush green world of rivers and forests. These discoveries prove a lost world really does exist in Antarctica. It's just a biological and geological one, not an alien one. The continent isn't some dead, static block of ice. It's a dynamic and mysterious place holding the secrets of our planet's deep past. And let's be honest, the ongoing discussion around UFOs, or UAPs, helps fuel the fire. With the Pentagon officially releasing Navy videos of unidentified aerial phenomena, the topic has moved out of the fringe and into the mainstream. We have real documented encounters with objects that can outperform our known technology. When you combine the very real mystery of UAPs with the very real mystery of Antarctica, you get the perfect recipe for a modern myth. Stories of Navy SEALs fighting underwater craft are the natural result. A grand story trying to connect two of our greatest unknowns. The story of Operation Deep Scan is a tapestry woven from threads of truth, misinterpretation, and outright fiction. It takes the real courage of Navy SEALs, the real history of Operation Highjump, and the real mystery of Antarctica, and braids them together into an epic tale. But when you start pulling on those individual threads, the whole thing begins to unravel. The credible evidence just isn't there. There's no record of an Operation Deep Scan, there's no proof of a battle, and the historical pillars holding the theory up just crumble under a little bit of pressure. So, what are we left with? A powerful, compelling story that plays on our fascination with the unknown and our distrust of official explanations. It's a story that feels like it should be true. The tale of UFOs attacking Navy SEALs in Antarctica is a modern legend. A piece of digital folklore passed down not around a campfire, but through forums and video platforms. It lasts because the continent at the bottom of the world remains a great, white, blank space on our mental map. A place where our imagination can run wild. The real story of Antarctica may not be about a secret war with aliens. The real story is about international cooperation for science, a continent reserved for peace. It's a story of discovering our own planet's deep history, of finding life where we thought none could exist, and of looking into our climate's past to understand our future. Maybe the truth isn't being hidden under the ice. Maybe the truth is the ice. What do you think? Is there a kernel of truth to these elaborate conspiracies that we're missing? Or is this just one of the most captivating myths of the internet age? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you appreciate this kind of investigation that separates fact from fiction, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what we uncover next.